So in day 1, I had covered quite a basic stuff, which was introduction and some concepts of object-oriented programming. We also saw a single driver and all everything. Okay, so now I'll come over to the concept of interfaces, and we will study the various drivers in Selenium. Okay, right. Now the thing is, I'll tell you, out here, yesterday, if you look at yesterday's code, I need to switch to your workspace. Hold on. Just hold on. Just a minute. Eclipse will start up. I am just switching over to your workspace. Hold on. So yesterday I had talked about the drivers, right? I had gone on this website, seleniumhq.org, and over here we saw the Java doc, and I told you about the various drivers which are available in Selenium, and we also talked about this driver which was Chrome driver, right? I told you that there are various other drivers as well apart from the Chrome driver which we had worked on. So this was the code which we made. Alright, so let me talk about the other drivers in Selenium, and then we will move ahead. Right, majorly there are three browsers, Chrome and Firefox. So drivers are available for all of them. Right, I'll make a new class over here, or project over here, new project. You can right click, select new project and name day 2. Today is the second day of training, and in day 2 I am going to add the jar files of Selenium, all the jars under lib and all the jars under this folder you have to add. Okay, now I'll just copy this driver Selenium from yesterday's class out here. Okay, now for every browser you have got driver. For example, Chrome driver is for Chrome browser, and Firefox driver class. There is a class known as Firefox. In Eclipse, there is a shortcut. If you just write FIRE and hit Control Spacebar of the keyboard, you will get all the classes which start with the word FIRE. Okay, right. And if you keep on typing, you will get the list sorted out. Okay, so Firefox driver is a driver which is used for Firefox, obviously. Okay, and you create the object of Firefox driver, right? And Selenium 3 will work on the latest version of Firefox. That is not a problem. Alright, just hold on. But to work with Firefox, you need to be a little careful, because in Selenium 3 there is something known as Gecko driver which has come up. Okay, so right now the version is very important for Firefox. The version which is 43, I'll update it, because the versions which are there in the market, I'll have to update it to 53. I have a older version, but anyways, right, in Firefox, if you have to work with Firefox driver, you scroll down. This window is right in front of me, so just bear with me. Okay, if you scroll down, if you go to this section, download over here, and you have to download an exe file for Firefox driver as well, just like you had downloaded the exe file for Chrome driver yesterday, right? So if you scroll down, there will be third-party driver bindings and plugins. Okay, and under that you will find Mozilla Gecko driver. Okay, click on the version. right? You'll have a detailed information on the GitHub as well for this. And if you click on the link, Mozilla GRID, if you click on this link, right, it will take you to GRID, and it will it has various descriptions over here, that what are the various parameters for browser settings and all, what are the various parameters for proxy in GRID and all. So you have to be a little careful out here, right? Now the thing is, I'll just tell you something. There are various versions of Selenium which are available in the market. Okay, right. Every version of Selenium works with different version of Firefox. Right now I'm using latest version of Selenium, which is Selenium 3. Okay, I have the jar files of Selenium 3 with me. So I'm taking the latest Firefox out here. Okay, and you will have to download this zip file for your operating system. Right, for example, I have a Windows 64-bit, I'll download this one. Okay, let it download, and I will just give you a brief history of what is actually happening with Selenium. Okay, look, the thing is, we had various versions in Selenium. Okay, let me download it again, just a minute. Out here, if I show you with the help of a diagram, we had a version, we had Selenium 2.0. 2.0, it came up in August 2011. Then came the version 2.53. Okay, it was a very stable version. Stable means that there were no defects, there were no problems in the version Selenium 2.53. Okay, and it works with, say, Firefox 43, it will work. Okay, right. Then they released Selenium 3.x. Okay, 3.x required GRID, which I am just downloading on my Firefox. Okay, it's rather downloaded. Alright, I'm going to upgrade my Firefox to the latest version. Right, because this GRID will make my compatibility with Firefox to the latest version. But the problem by using Selenium 3.x is that it is unstable. Although it works with the latest version of Firefox, it is unstable. It has got issues, and I will show the issues to you as well during the class. Okay, and it will be completely up to you whether you have to work with Selenium 3 or 2.53, because 2.53 was the last stable version in 2.x series. After that, directly 3.0 came up. Okay, right. Now there is not much difference. The API 95%, 96% is same. As a beginner, it won't actually, whether you use 2.53 or you use 3.x, you won't feel the difference. Okay, if you visit the official website of Selenium, okay, you can see the change logs and all, everything over there. If you go to the website seleniumhq.org, and if you go to the download section, in the change log, this change log has the log of every version of Selenium. Okay, if you go inside it, right now the version is 3.4, and these are the changes and fixes done in this. If you scroll down, you will see that there was a version 2.53, which was the final version release of 2.x. Okay, after that 3.0 came up, and few problems are still there in the Selenium 3 version. Alright, fine. Now I have downloaded that Gecko driver. Let me open it. This is geckodriver.exe. Okay, so to work with it, you will have to write this line for Firefox as well, system.setProperty WebDriver.gecko.driver, and the value as the path to the geckodriver.exe file on your PC. Okay, on my PC it is lying out here. Alright, fine. So now let me check my Firefox. Just a minute. I've upgraded it to the latest version because earlier I was working with 2.53. It works on the older version of Firefox. But 2.53 is stable one. Okay, so let Firefox open. Right. So right now I have the version 53. Okay. So when I run this code, it will see, it opens the Firefox browser, and it will work with Firefox. If I write Firefox driver dot get the URL as http://yahoo.com and run this. Don't actually worry what is being printed over here. These are just the logs. These are not errors. Okay, right. Yes, the old code which was made in 2.53, it will work in 3.0. Okay, there are no changes, major changes like that. Okay, right. So you see that yahoo.com has opened. Fine, right. Now, similarly, there are other drivers as well, like Edge driver for Microsoft Edge browser, iDriver and all. You can work with them. But the question which arises is that whether you will have to learn every driver separately. Okay, in the documentation of Selenium on seleniumhq.org, alright, you have this Java doc, which is the documentation for Selenium. Okay, and in this Java doc, if you look carefully, like I told you yesterday, you will find WebDriver, and these are the implementing, or these are the classes, driver classes. So will you learn about these driver classes separately? Will you write separate code for automating a website on IE and a separate piece of code to automate the website on Firefox? Okay, that's not the case. Alright, you will have to study the concept of interface in Java language, and that will help you out. Okay, now how does interfaces they help us in this? Alright, so out here I am going to create, I'll tell you what an interface is first. Okay, I can create a new interface. Okay, you don't have to learn about every driver separately. You have to understand the concept of interfaces in object-oriented programming. Alright, what is an interface? An interface is something which tells you about what a system is supposed to do, what the system is supposed to do, what the system is about. Okay, right, for example, uh, when you go and buy a book, the cover page of the book is like an interface for you. It gives you a fair idea, okay, about what the book is supposed to do, right? It gives you a fair idea about what book is doing. So that interface of the book, right, which will help you in purchasing the book, but it actually doesn't give you the complete information, right? Similarly, the interface in Selenium or in Java, the interface is something which gives you an idea about the system. Okay, that what system is supposed to do. Okay, right? For example, I can make a new interface known as phone. Alright, now the phone interface can have features like public void call. Okay, public void say recharge. In the interface, what we do is that we declare the functions. We don't give them any body. Okay, we just declare the functions. Alright, and we, after declaring the functions, sorry, we implement the interface and we implement the functions. Okay, what are what do you mean by implementing the interface and all? For example, I'll create a new class over here known as say iPhone. Now iPhone is a phone, alright, and what we can do is that we can in this class we can write iPhone implements the phone interface. Okay, when iPhone implements the phone interface, what does it mean? It means that this iPhone class will implement all the functions in the phone interface. Why does it throw you an error? Why does it throw you an error over here on iPhone? This error is thrown because the functions are not implemented right now. You move the mouse over this and you will get the suggestion. In Eclipse, you get a suggestion when you get an error. Okay, so you add the unimplemented functions. So they get added automatically. So if a interface is implementing a class, if a class is implementing an interface, okay, it is mandatory for that class to implement all the functions in the interface. Right? Okay, so @override sign, okay, this means that this function is coming up from the interface. Okay, this means that this function is coming from the interface. This is like a tag. So inside it I can print iPhone calling, and I can also print iPhone recharge. Okay, I can print both these things out here. Alright, so it was very simple. We had a class, right? That class implements the phone interface. Okay, and after implementing the phone interface, it has implemented both the functions of the interface. If I omit one of the functions, I will start getting an error. It is mandatory for you to implement all the functions in the interface. I can create another class, call that as say Samsung phone, and the Samsung phone will also implement the phone interface. Now, since Samsung phone is implementing the interface phone, you will have to implement both the functions. And in the functions you can write, says according to Samsung, you can implement it Samsung calling and Samsung recharge. Okay, right. So you can put both of them over here. Okay, and out here we have got two classes now, iPhone and Samsung. Both are implementing the phone interface, right? But what is the advantage? What I did was that I created an interface. I implemented two classes. Both the whatever the functions were in the interface, I put them in the classes. What is the advantage of this scenario? I could have never made an interface. I could have simply made the classes. Okay, the advantage is that if another phone comes up tomorrow, many phones they come up tomorrow, phone classes, all of them will implement this interface and all of them will have the same set of functions. Looking at the interface, just looking at the interface, you can say that what all functions will be there in the implementing classes. So this is the advantage of interface. It gives a structure to the application. Right, when a new person looks at the application or the code, he can look at the interface, he will see that fine, these two are the functions. So he will automatically come to know that whichever class will be implementing this interface will have these two call and recharge functions. And that exactly what happens in Selenium. Okay, in the documentation it is written interface WebDriver. Alright, WebDriver technically is nothing but it is an interface which has got many functions which are described in the documentation. These functions, they help you in interacting with the web page. Okay, and all the implementing classes, all the driver classes, Chrome driver, iDriver, Edge driver, Firefox, Safari, Opera, okay, all these driver classes, they are implementing the WebDriver interface. So all these driver classes will have the same set of functions. That is why when we had made this driver Selenium class and I had made the object of Chrome driver and Firefox driver, to go to Yahoo we had used the function get with the Chrome driver class, and for Firefox driver also the function name is same, get. Okay, because both these classes, both of them, they are implementing the WebDriver interface. Are you understanding my point? Please let me know. If you are not understanding my point, right, you can let me know. I'll help you out. You got it right? What I'm telling you. Fine. So if anybody has any questions, you can use this chat on this uh, Zoom meetings. Okay, the chat option is there. I just pinged you. Right. Now you have got the drivers, and all these drivers, they are implementing the interface WebDriver. Okay, and all these driver classes will have the same set of functions which are there in the WebDriver interface. This is clear, right? Okay. Now, for example, if I make my code like this, I'll create a new class known as test phone. Okay. So whether I create the object of iPhone, if I write iPhone I equals to new iPhone, I created the object of iPhone. With iPhone object, I can access call and I can access the recharge functions. Similarly, I can create the object of Samsung, and with this object I can access the call and recharge functions of the Samsung class. Both the classes are implementing the interface phone, so set of functions are same. The name of functions is same. So when I run it, it will just print iPhone calling and iPhone recharge, and Samsung calling Samsung recharge. Okay, right. Now, moving ahead with interfaces. If I just told you one thing, that all the browsers, they implement the WebDriver interface. So the functions in them are same. But if I have a scenario where I have to dynamically launch browser, for example, I'll create a new class known as launch browser. I have a scenario where I have to dynamically launch a browser. Right. Say I have a variable known as browser equals to say Chrome. So later on we can read this value from an Excel file or from a properties file or from some external file. Right now I am hard coding this. Right. So whatever value comes up, the script which is written over here should run on that particular browser. So how will you do this? How will you do this? Anyone? How will you manage this? Any idea? Yes, uppercase. Look, many times people say we'll use an if statement. That if the browser is equal to Mozilla, we can actually go ahead and create the object of Firefox driver. Else, if the browser is equal to Chrome, we can create the object of Chrome driver. But this will not solve, or else if the browser is I, then we will go ahead and print the object of I drive. Now this won't help. We'll create the object of I driver over here, Chrome driver, because once you go to yahoo.com, you have to interact with the web page as well. Okay, will you interact for Mozilla separately, Chrome separately, and I separately? Although all the three drivers over here, all the three browsers, they are different. Okay, they have different drivers. Every driver has got same set of functions. But will you use every driver separately? This doesn't make any sense. If you have to click on a link, will you write repetitive code? You got my point? Right? So the solution to this also comes up from the concept of interfaces. Okay, the solution to this also comes up from interfaces. Now, how do you solve this with interfaces? What we do is that we do it like this in test phone. I'm going to do little different things right now. Okay, now in iPhone class we have got these two functions, call and recharge. Okay, and inside the Samsung phone again we have got these two classes, call and recharge. Alright, now what I am going to do is that right in my iPhone class I am going to have one more function, say IMAP. Now IMAP function is completely there for iPhone. Okay. Alright, fine. So this function is proprietary function for iPhone. It is not coming up from the phone interface. When we create the object in test phone, I can call I.IMAP over here. I cannot call it from the Samsung object because obviously this is not there. Okay, so when you run this, right, and it prints Samsung calling and it prints IMAP as well. Okay, right. So out here, if I create the object like this, phone, first of all, if I try to create the object of phone, you cannot create the object of phone because phone is an interface, and interface is something which is incomplete. It is not complete. Okay, so you cannot just go and create the object of something which is not complete. So first of all, you cannot create an object of an interface. Please make sure you don't do this. Okay, now if I write like this, phone P equals to new iPhone. Here is what the difference. Look at this line. I'm writing iPhone reference I equals to the object of the class iPhone. Over here I'm writing phone P, the reference of interface, equating to the object of the class which is implementing the interface. Okay, the interface reference equating to the object of the class which is implementing the interface. So this is different. Okay, when you write like this, you can actually access the functions which are there in the interface and implement it in the class. I can access the function call because call function is actually coming from the interface into the class. I can access the function recharge because recharge is also there in the interface. But I cannot access the function IMAP. It will give me an error. If you create an object like this, you can access all the functions of iPhone. But if you create the object with the reference of the interface, you can access the functions which are in the class coming from the interface, not the proprietary functions of the class. Okay, if I run this code, it will print this iPhone calling an iPhone recharge. But what is the advantage of this? Okay, I can access all three over here, but I cannot. But why do we create the object over here like this? Because we are not able to access all the functions. The advantage or the reason why we do this is that I'll explain it like this. Hold on. I can create the object of Samsung as well. Okay, Samsung class also implements the phone interface. So with P1 I can access the functions which are there in the Samsung class coming from the interface phone. So when you run this code, right, it prints iPhone calling iPhone recharge and Samsung calling it Samsung recharge. Okay, right, now it's up to me. It's my choice. I can make P1 point towards, say, new iPhone. Reference remains the same. For the phone interface, P1 was the reference. It was pointing towards Samsung phone. Okay, so this was the object Samsung phone and P1 was pointing towards this. Now I have made P1 point towards the object of iPhone. Okay, right, and I can call the two functions again. Right, I'll just print a demarcating line. And when I run this, it prints Samsung calling Samsung recharge, iPhone calling iPhone recharge. The reference remains the same. Okay, I can create a reference. I can write phone X equals to null. That means the interface reference X for this phone, X reference, is not pointing to any object. Okay, and based on my choices or based on my situation or criteria or requirements, I can make X point towards maybe iPhone, or I can make X point towards maybe Samsung phone. Okay, if I write x.call, this will call the function in iPhone class, and if I write x.call over here, this will call the function in Samsung class. I hope you are understanding the point. When I run this, you see that this iPhone calling and Samsung calling is because of these two line numbers 33 and 35. Anybody with any questions? Anyone? So that is what we will use in Selenium as well. Okay, we will use the same thing in Selenium. I told you that WebDriver is an interface and these are the implementing classes. So we can write like this, that WebDriver driver is null. That means, or I can create objects like this as well. WebDriver driver equals to new Chrome driver. Okay, right. Or I can write like this, WebDriver Firefox F equals to new Firefox driver. Okay, right. Now out here, I can make the WebDriver reference point towards anything. I can make my WebDriver say driver equals to null, and based on my requirement, I can make driver point towards Chrome driver, or I can make driver point towards Firefox driver. It is my choice out here, and that's what exactly I will do in this launch browser. Instead of creating the object like this, I'll declare my WebDriver on the top, and based on my requirement, this driver will point towards Firefox driver. Okay, and this driver will point towards Chrome driver. So I can. Okay, now I don't need to rewrite the code driver.get over here. I can simply write the code over here outside the if statement. Okay, even interaction and all I can write over here, because the reference, it becomes the same. Okay, right? I hope you are getting my point. So just need to the driver to initiate the browser. Okay, over here in case of I, you can write driver equals to new Internet Explorer driver. For I, you need Internet Explorer driver. And once the browser is initialized, you can interact with it over here after the if statement. Okay, so this is how you can work with multiple browsers. If I have the browser Chrome over here and if I run the code, okay, this is going to open up Chrome and take it to yahoo.com. Alright, and if I make the browser as Mozilla over here and run this code, this will open up Firefox and this will take your browser to yahoo.com Firefox browser. Okay, right? This is how it works. Now, as far as IE is concerned, to work with IE, to work with IE, you have to download the Internet Explorer driver server for your 32-bit IE or 64-bit IE. Okay, I will download it from here. Okay, I have downloaded it. I'll just keep it over here. IE driver server exe, and you have to write, in case of IE also, you have to write, sorry for the background noise, you have to write the same line, system.setProperty webdriver.ie.driver, and you have to give the path of IE driver server exe. Okay, right? Fine. Anybody with any questions? Right? Right. So now, if you look at the sheet, so we have studied the very WebDriver interface, the drivers in Selenium and all. Now we have to see how Selenium works. Okay, right, and how it works, page source and all, everything. All right. Now, um, out here, let me explain you in this way. If I open any website, if I go to yahoo.com on any browser, right? You as a end user look at this website and you have the good interface in front of you. Selenium never looks at it like that. Okay, it goes at the page source. If you right click on the page, you will go onto the page source. Right, and out here on the page source, you have got tags, you have got attributes, there are many things. Alright, a page source comprises of tags and attributes, and you need to understand that. For example, right, this is a tag, body tag. Okay, every tag has got, like, whatever is in the reddish color is a tag. Okay, fine. So this tag has got various set of attributes associated with it. For example, class is one of the attributes. Okay, ID is one of the attributes, right? And fine. And if I scroll down, it's a really good idea. For example, this is a division tag. It's got an attribute known as ID, right? So out here, this li tag has got the attribute class over here, right? So we use the combination of these tags and attributes to identify the elements, right? Fine. And how do we use that? Okay, we will see that. Let us do one thing. Let's break for 5 minutes. Okay, let us break for 5 minutes. Don't confuse it with the web element of uh, QTP. Okay, right. It is very different. Right. Now, as on a web page, everything is a web element. Right. And for example, um, a link is a web element, a button is a web element. All right. And everything, whatever you see on a web page, okay, right, is a web element. Right. Okay. Now, that web element, everything which is a web element is managed with the help of, hold on, I'll show you, an interface. Again, an interface. Right. If you go to the Java doc, you will see if you scroll down, hold on. If you scroll down, you will see an interface known as web element. This is the one. Now it says that represents an HTML element, a generic HTML element on the web page. Okay, right. And it's got functions, generic functions like click or clear or even like get the text. Right. These are, these are just, you can say generic functions which you can work with. Okay, they describe themselves. I'm not going into depth right now. All right. And in the code, when you write the code, for example, I have to go to a web page, click on a link or something. What we do, we as an automation tester, we say that we find the web elements on the web page. Okay, you search for the web elements. right? Fine. Now if I write over here driver dot find element, there is a command in Selenium known as driver dot find element. This command is supposed to find a web element on the page with certain criteria, and what is the criteria? We'll talk about it. It returns you the reference of web element on which you can perform the operations. You can import web element, right? Okay. Now, how do you, on which criteria you find the element on a web page? On which criteria you find the web element on the web page? For that, there is a class by which helps us. Okay, now if you look at anything on the web page, for example, if I go to the website like say salesforce.com, I'll take up any random, or I go to the website in.rediff.com. Right, and you click on sign in and you want to type something in the user ID field. Okay, you right click on the field, you'll get the option to inspect the element. Okay, you select the inspect option and you'll get the element details, that this is an input tag whose ID is login. If you get an ID of any element, it becomes it becomes really easy to identify the element. But not every element has got an ID. Okay, not every element, but if you have an ID, it really helps you. For example, on the web page, if I write over here driver.get to this URL where you have to log in. Okay, and you find the element, there is a class known as by, which has got various locator strategies. Right, right. And one of the locator strategies is ID. I'll talk about everything. Right, right. And you can give the ID of the element over here. For example, the ID is login1. So this will extract the web element corresponding to login1 ID and it will return you the element. Okay, fine. And on that element, you can send keys, you can fire send keys. Hello. Right. Send keys means go and type into the element. Okay, you will find all the web element operations over here, click, get location and all, which I was telling you. We will talk about it. Right? Okay, so when I run this code, it will open up Mozilla. Okay, hold on. And hold on just a minute. It failed or something. Okay, yeah, it was minimized. Alright, it opened Mozilla and wrote hello. Okay, right, fine. And even if I make it Chrome, this will work. Even if I make this browser to Chrome, this is going to work because the page source remains the same across all the browsers. Right? And when you run this code, right, you see that? It's typing hello. Right? So across the browsers also I can test. Fine? Right? Because the page source remains the same. So this is what we are going to do. We are launching the browser, and no matter whether you investigate the page on, you investigate the browser on Firefox, or whether you investigate the website on Chrome or IE, it doesn't matter. Right? Alright. And you can run it across different browsers. You don't have to change the script. Okay, right. So what I'll do is, guys, I will stop here for today.